Good morning, everyone. I'm almost ready. I'll tell you how great a day it is. Welcome to Lake George Park Commission, meeting number 491. And we have a quorum? Yeah. We do have a quorum. I want to tell everybody just so you know what kind of a day I'm having. Today's my wife's birthday, and December 12th is our 60th wedding anniversary, and foolishly in church Sunday morning I announced Sandy's birthday and her wedding anniversary, and I said the only reason I'm bringing it up today is in case I forget it. And as I'm here this morning for our law enforcement committee meeting, and my phone buzzes quite quietly, I hope. It's one of our grandchildren wishing their grandmother a happy birthday, which led me to understand that I hadn't said a word this morning before I left the house. So we adjourned and I made a phone call, and I'm still able to go home today. So that's good. I always used to joke for years that, with our anniversary, early December, her birthday, late November, whenever I come home and I find a turkey in the refrigerator, I go out and buy a birthday present and an anniversary present. There's a turkey, Thanksgiving, her birthday, the 26th. So here we are. Minutes of the previous meeting. Have we all had a chance to review them? And any comments, any corrections?
So motion approved.
Motion made, motion second. All in favor? Carried.
Right.
Fiscal actions report and expenditures.
Move to
Who
approve.
reviewed it?
Second.
Motion? Second. Discussion? None? Hearing none? Carried. Molly Gallagher. Dock permits, trends, and compliance.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We just have a few minutes to go over our dock permit compliance data. And as you all know, we've had dock regulations on Lake George since 1981. It's almost a 40-year program now, and it's been a long haul. And throughout all these years, it's just been incrementally getting things a little bit tighter, making sure that people have permits when they modify or construct a dock or put out a mooring. And I guess in the early years we had, some limited enforcement because there were so many limited personnel. I think there was only one person assigned between 81 and 88 at DEC who was monitoring that. However, they did, go in and check docks and respond to complaints. And then in 88, there was the change in regulations, changed from 10-foot to a 20-foot setback. And we continued on. We made sure all the marinas got permits, and we continued to try to match up people paying for their docks and whether they had permits for their docks. And in 2012, when Dave came on board, he asked us, are you looking at all those docks that you permitted? And, well, at that time, we were responding to complaints. We looked at some of them, but we did not have a full program where we would look at every dock that had been permitted. Since that time, we've initiated that program, and every year we send out everybody, who's willing and commission staff to go out and measure these docks. And we've developed a pretty good set of data on compliance. And the good news is, in the early years, the docks that were completed between 2012 and 2015, does everyone have a copy of this report? I don't know if it's on your... No. I do have a few documents around here. And we've only got partial data for 2019. But from what we have, that's most of the year. As I was saying, from 2012 to 2015, our compliance rate was roughly 60%. We are now up in the high 70%. 77% for this year so far. Last year was 80%. Data continues to dribble in because docks that were completed this year, we haven't all got their certificates of completion. Generally, we issue a permit for a year, and sometimes people will complete that dock 2 days after they get the permit, and never send in a certificate of completion until we let them know a year later. So sometimes our numbers change as we go on. But that's basically what we have. The trends for permits issued are staying relatively flat. We had a couple of spikes last year. As you know, we had a lot of crib damage. And so that went way up for 1 year. And before that, we had let everybody know they needed a Class B marina permit, so that raised our total permit reviews. But we're at 266 permits reviewed per year, which we've actually seen that number in prior years. You know, there's a gradual increase since 1988, since the commission's been a state agency, but we're doing pretty good. I don't know if you have any questions.
I do. How many years you been with the Park Commission now?
It is about 29. It'll be 30 April 10th. And yes, as most of you know, I'm planning to retire May 29th. It's roughly around.
That sad news wasn't what I want you to be seeing. But I just wanted to compliment you on your years of history and your institutional knowledge. I mean, Molly's always been
saturated in it.
Yours is the face and the name on the street. Anytime I'm talking to somebody, I called Molly about this, blah, 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 whatever. So,
in an effort to increase compliance even more, what Molly's been doing with Connie, our temp, is when we get a call from a real estate agent saying, my client is looking at this and we'd really like to know whether it's compliant or not. It takes time, sometimes, maybe out of the traditional workload. But the argument is on the backside, if we identify an issue up front, they can put that in the closing and they can resolve that so it's not continuing to compound over the years, because we generally won't go after somebody that bought a property with an illegal dock. It's difficult to do because they didn't know. So it takes a fair amount of work, and I've noted before, this all stems out of a comment from Commissioner Nishaw about 8 years ago, that a few things that were on our docket were violations that we found because somebody had a dock, they did some work 15 years ago, and they came back, and on our inspection, it was completely out of compliance, and now should we make them have an order on consent after 15 years of not being in compliance? And these things were very regular happening, so the board kind of concurred, said if we can fit it into the staff schedules. So all the staff, except for Eric and Michelle, get together, go out in teams, and take a look. So I don't know how many we did overall this year, but it was a considerable number. And the nice thing is, I think it's developed a little bit closer relationship with the dock builders, because they know, and they know that they can call in advance. Roger has been going out in advance when there's a difficult property to say, boy, this thing is really within the property lines, and if you go 5 feet this way, you're going to be in enforcement, you're going to have to move your entire dock. So Roger's been going out to actually help the dock builder try to find the stakes and to build it in the correct orientation, because some of this stuff is a little more tricky. So it does take staff time, but we do it in a slower time of year, and so we haven't had to increase any staff to do that, and I think it's really kind of a benefit, not only for the commission, but for the regulated community, because nobody wants to have their dock, their beautiful $100,000 dock installed, and find out it's 10 feet too far to the left and you're in this guy's property. So I think it's been a pretty useful exercise. It doesn't generally make the front cover of newspapers, but for us in our program, it seems to have some value. So I think she does a great job with it.
An example of that is apparently the new O'Reilly's Auto Store in Queensbury was not built in the spot that was supposed to have been built, according to the plans.
Really?
And they now have to file for a variance with the town. I don't know how many feet off that black line on the map is, but it's their building lot. It's not where exactly it's supposed to be. So I guess there's work for that. Anyways, good job.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks, Molly. Yes.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you for taking care of me.
No problem.
That's a great country western song, too. The next presentation is Invasive Eurasian Water Milfoil in Lake George by Mr. Dave Wick. And you realize that this group is the only group that you could speak to with the title of your subject, that many words.
Yeah, that's a little long. Sorry about that. There's no snappy title to it. Joe Jones, can you pull the front cover off of that thing? So, once a year, we like to have somebody talk about milfoil control at Lake George, whether it's us or the contractor. This right here is my lovely daughter from, I think that's 5 years ago, before she became a high schooler and doesn't want to hang out with me anymore. We went out, this is actually at Rogers Rock Campground, and I wanted to hang out and go boating for the day and do whatever. She really wanted to just pick all the plants that were just off of the beach. She's like, what are these? They're everywhere. And I said, well, if you do it, you got to get them by the roots, right? And I swear to God, we did this for 3 hours where she'd pick them all and I'd carry them over into the woods. And she won't do it anymore with me. She won't touch plants anymore. But that is, so if you have kids, they're a lot of fun up until this point. Rogers Rock is a site that had been very well managed by our previous contractor. Did excellent work, and it's starting to slowly rebound. So we're going to be hitting on that next year. Walt and I had a conversation about maybe next year we start north and work our way south a little bit because it's been a few years. So a little bit of history. Milfoil discovered in 1985, started being managed in 1986. Around, I think that was Darren Freshwater at the time, RCI Freshwater at the time.
DEC was playing with it.
And DEC. And so, Rod, what year did you jump in and start getting involved?
We were in it in the early 90s.
Early 90s, right? So, Roger and his team had, I think, the first suction harvester on Lake George, big old diesel engine kind of thing. So, it worked well sometimes, didn't work so well other times. But it kind of got us into the foray of really trying to manage larger beds of milfoil in Lake George. It's been going on for 33 years, and sadly we do have some more years to come. But those years that are coming, at least at the current funding rates that we have, I think are going to be extremely productive. We have spent some money on this program collectively, but it has been very much a partnership effort, and that's been fantastic. Why do we care about milfoil? You know, we spend a fair amount of financial resources on this between all of the partners. It is a wickedly fast-growing plant that can actually take over entire lakes. Cosumel in Washington County for a time, and I don't know if it's like that today. The entire lake was milfoil. You couldn't boat in it, couldn't swim, couldn't fish. I think they're starting to do some good work on it. But this was not uncommon in areas, and what are you going to do in that? And we have areas in Lake George that actually can get like this. This is Sunset Bay, and this is when I got to the commission. Sunset Bay had essentially taken off, and Sunset Bay is no joke. It's a good-sized bay. It's up at Hewlett's Landing. I'll show you a picture in a minute. To the point where Tom Conrad owns Hewlett's Island Marina, and after 2 years of intensive effort up there, Tom came up to me when we happened to be up there, and he says, I got to tell you, he's like, I completely have written off Sunset Bay. It's like, there was just no value in going in there anymore. This was a large, beautiful area where the county beach is. He said, but your crews have come in and absolutely knocked it back. It's like making a complete rebound. So Sunset Bay does not look like that anymore whatsoever. The current location, so milfoil is kind of ubiquitous throughout Lake George right now, but it's not ubiquitous to a point where each of these dots represents a problematic infestation. It may be anywhere from 10 plants to 1,000 plants. And we're going to talk about some of the bigger sites. So we have a couple hundred that are known out there. Most of them are low density, but we do have a few that are significant. So are we making progress in Lake George? And I get asked this more than any other question, I would say, probably at the office. And I would absolutely answer yes, and I believe it's growing. We've had a history. I've been here 8 years. We started when I was here with Lycott Environmental. Roger worked with them, and we were able to bring about $100,000 to the table every year. And with that amount of money, we were not seeing a full management of all the sites in Lake George. We started seeing some expansion. We just didn't have the resources. The Fund for Lake George and Lake George Association, realizing this is going to be a long-term challenge, stepped up massively in their efforts and started helping out financially. It kind of turned the tide. After Lycott, we started working with what you guys might remember is aquatic invasive management. That was Andrew and Tommy. They'd come here at the end of the year. They'd talk about their program. It was all hand harvesting, going out with a couple of skiffs, 2 guys in the water when we had topside. And they made some great strides. Unfortunately, that company split up. Tommy and Andrew had a falling out. And we had to look who else does this work that's out there in the environment. And we came up with AE Commercial Diving, which is this company on the bottom here that uses a suction harvesting method. What are we looking at for funding? It's a pretty significant number, and there's no joke here. $100,000 is through the Park Commission and Environmental Protection Fund. $100,000 of privately donated money that goes to 100 through the Lake George Association that's put 100% into this program, matching our money. The fund for Lake George has averaged between $60,000 and $75,000 every year. And I worked with Warren County back about 2 years ago. Chris Billman was writing some grants, he's in the planning department. So I'd really like to do something to supplement the program for Lake George. I think it's an important issue here in the county. And he said, if you can put together the guts of what you think you want to do, I'll do the rest of the package and we'll get it today. And magically we got it. It's a $600,000 grant. The county's taking a certain small percentage off for administrative costs. That means about $180,000 per year for 3 years to help out with milfoil program in Lake George. This gets us to the highest level that we have ever had for milfoil snow dollars in Lake George. So now is the time. We're going to do it. Now is the time. What is our process? How do we do it out there? It's called DASH. It's a diver-assisted suction harvesting. So what they have is this unit in the back here, basically a big pontoon boat, and it has an air compressor on it, it's got a pump on it. And so what this guy does, this is Wes Sheldon. He is a nephew of the owner of the company, diver. He's down there at the bottom of the lake, and he'll hand harvest the plant itself, and he will put the root ball into the suction tube, and that suction tube goes up onto this tray of copper, and what we end up is all this milfoil that they scrape in the buckets. This dude's name is Lunch Cow. Cool guy, kind of told us what happens on the top side, so they have two cool men here. They got Lunch Cow and Freak. You can see Freak, I don't have a picture of him, but he's pretty wild. But they're hard workers with the bulls, and they do the job what they need to do, and we're seeing some pretty significant progress in a lot of the areas. So I referenced Sunset Bay before, so this is Sunset Bay. It's fairly significant in size, and that picture that I took, everywhere from this point all the way across to a narrow island and down in was completely just a field of milfoil. So 2 years of aquatic invasive management working in it, now 2 years of 80 kilometers of diving, we're down about 95% milfoil in this bay. And it's going to be an ongoing effort, but we think at least the days of dense beds in Sunset Bay are kind of behind us. So we were lucky enough to get 17 sites in this year, and that's one of the challenges, because one of the challenges, successes as well as the challenges. This company is not as mobile as the previous company that we had. The previous company had the 3 Carolina skiffs, and they could get up to, say, 30 miles an hour. The pontoon boats that we're using right now are much slower. They can't go quite as fast. It takes them a while to get to the site, so we're more geographically limited than we have in the past. The furthest north we got this year is Hewitt's Landing, so we're only halfway up the lake. And so we haven't hit the north side of the lake in 2 years since they left. That is come to the detriment of 2 of the sites that are very well managed. One is Rocky Drop, and the other is RP Bay. Swimming both of those days this year. Those are starting to rebound. They're not nearly as but if we let it go, and we crawl back again, we'll want to lose some of that time, and we lose it. So these are the primary sites that we worked on. I color-coded them, just so you know where we're working. These are Queensberry and Red, Lakewood and Black, and so on. Our goal is to increase that number as much as we can. The more we reduce the dense beds. So instead of they spent 3 weeks in Sunset Bay, we're open for 1 week next year. Those additional 2 weeks can be spent up in Glen Burnie, which is one of the building or wherever else. We think we're making some pretty good progress. I get calls, walk under these calls all summer long for guys saying, I have 5 milfoil plants off my dock, I can maybe come get those. I need them today because I got part of them. We say, well, that's not really the way the program works. We can't simply ask our guys that are working 12 miles away to come down with a big machine to pull 5 plants. We say, you have every ability to go out there and pull those 5 plants yourself. Even if you can't get the root, pull as much of the plant as you can. And that's going to end up in a better situation than we are right now. But we do find new dense beds. This bed actually was found partially by me and partially by our boat inspector. I was pulling my boat out one day. When I pulled it out, it was absolutely covered in milfoil fragments. It took me 15 minutes just to get everything off my boat. So when I was talking to Mike, one of our inspectors, I said, what's going on? Where is this bed? Because I got to know that every boat that's coming out, we are pulling all the fragments off. So that afternoon, I contacted the company and said, I don't care where you're working, you're going to have these 3 crews down here because we are exporting every boat that's coming out of here, we're exporting the boats and all that's acceptable. So they spent 2 weeks down here and cleaned out that bed 100%. So the hope is that all of that is going to remain about 90% reduced from previous years. There's always going to be fragments, there's always going to be parts of root balls that we missed that are going to regrow. But the goal is to get about 90% minimum of any dense bed before that capacity can start to regrow. If we can snap proper these sites every between 1 and 3 years, that's the long-term goal that I'm talking about. Something we have discovered, sites in rock are very difficult to control. So our crews spend a lot of time out by Long Island and Steve Protect, and this morning, to look at those sites, is a rock bed, it is a boulder bed that literally connects Long Island all the way over to Assembly Point. It is the bed of milfoil, about as wide as it's grown, and as dense as you've seen, but all the roots are fine. So for us, that's a difficult site to control because you can't get the root cheese from off the line. So we take all that into consideration. So how do we check progress? Because we're likely to get the reports from the milfoil company, but they can't get all the resources plus we want to have the kind of creativity on the outside. So we've had a great benefit of having LGA staff, that's Kristen and here, go out with Joe and myself, and we'll go out every about a week and a half to 2 weeks, and we'll do 2 different things. One is to check the progress, check the site before they want to do the work, and we also have what we call forgotten site states, or that we haven't been in 5 years, let's see if we remember or not. And then we take a little note and say, look at our Hollow Bay. Our Hollow Bay hasn't been in since 2012, and there's still only about 100 plants in it. That's not poised for expansive growth. We're going to kick it off. So, by efforts and volunteers helping us out with some of these sites, we'll go over the 2 miles a day, swimming some of these sites, and just seeing what the status looks like. And that will kind of inform our next steps as we move forward. So this is where we are. This is kind of what we're looking like right now. So the red checks are dense beds that currently exist in Lake George. Green are dense beds that were dense beds that are now largely eradicated as a dense bed of milfoil. And sites like Long Island have been managed, but they tend to rebound pretty quickly and we need to stay on top of those. So the good news is, reading the reports when I came on, there was anywhere between 20 and 30 dense beds of milfoil in Lake George as reported by Lycott, the previous contractor. As of now, we're showing about 7 by my take. So down here in the village is going to be the most difficult site to eradicate. That's going to be our last ground zero site if we can get the plan to work. But we have some difficult ones just discovered. Sawmill Bay Channel, nobody knew. There's about a 3/4 acre bed smack in the middle of that channel where everybody's coming up by Green Island. That's a tricky one. We're going to get on that really early next year. Turtle Island is a wicked dense bed up in the Narrows that hasn't expanded very much, but we think we can get rid of it. Commission Point has expanded pretty considerably. And then moving up north, there's a couple sites that were discovered fairly recently. Eichlerville Bay has been on and off for a while, and it's exploded into a big dense bed. They just started working on it, and they say this, with the sediment that we have out here and the density of this, we think we can wipe this out as a site within 2 years and not have to go back. So that's great news. And we want to do the same thing with Gull Bay. AIM, our previous contractor, spent a fair amount of time up there in Gull Bay, and that has responded better than any other site that I know of in Lake George, to the point where we think we can make Gull Bay milfoil free. And that is kind of the goal for everything, is to not have to go back every year if we don't need to. Find those sites that respond well and eliminate those sites. By contrast, Glen Burnie has been the exact opposite. We'll go in there and we will spend weeks worth of work, and at least under the previous contractor, there was just a rug of fragments at the end, and it came back next year as strong as it ever was, so we held off on it until we get a better system. We collectively think that the new system, where not only are they picking it, but at the end they're literally vacuuming the bottom and all the fragments off the bottom, and that seems to have done very well about avoiding rebound for these plants that are coming back in. So here's a quick summary. Thanks to Michelle for putting all the data together. So this is what we're looking at, is Sunset Bay. I showed you a couple times a picture of Sunset Bay. Still is our highest producer because it's very large and they spent a fair amount of time there. Clay Island was the first time this has been hit in my tenure here. Wicked dense solo plants for about a half an acre large. And then we kind of work our way down. Some of the traditional ones, Harris Bay, Warner Bay, Dunn's Bay, have been worked for a long time. They do tend to rebound pretty quickly. But as we take a look at the efficiency per site, which is how many pounds of milfoil are you pulling out versus how much time are you spending, that's kind of what we're looking at as this will help guide us next year and say, maybe our time is still best spent at getting as much volume out and eliminating these large, dense beds as continuing to go back to Long Island, Elizabeth Island that are cropping up slowly. So it's kind of a waste of their time at this stage to go to some of these sites over here. We really want to be focusing as much as we can over here until we get rid of all those dense beds that we can. So what is the goal? This is what I've been saying for a few years now. I think our partners are on the same page. Within 3 years, no more dense beds of milfoil in Lake George. I know it said that to Tony, I think it said to Gwen. This is where we are, and we think we have the ability to do it thanks to our partnership funding and that grant that we have right here, the program we have in place. It's going to require about $500,000 per year for 3 years to make this happen, based on my math and looking at what progress we've made and what we have left in the lake. We must continue to keep these sites in check. We can't just get them and forget them. Like Arcady Bay, we did great work up there, was gone. We went back 2 years later, and it's really rebounded pretty robustly. And everybody has to be aware of the fact that we're not getting rid of milfoil in Lake George. There's always going to be maintenance level efforts because out of those 200 sites that we said we identified, there are probably another 200 to 300 sites where if you were to swim the entire shoreline of Northwest Bay or up in Hague, you'd probably find stragglers here and there. So those things, it's not likely we're ever going to be able to get to those individual plants until they turn into something that's worthy of us going out to, something about the size of this room, like an Indian Bay. We said, all right, there's a few plants out there, and we took a look and said, no, it's actually a very dense bed about the size of this room, and it took them 3 days to clear. Not only to get all the plants at the roots, but also in fact at the bottom. And at least from Chris Sheldon, the owner of the company's take on it, that bed and that bay should be good for a few years to come at a minimum. If we hit it again next year very quickly, we're going to really knock those numbers back again. So this is kind of what we're looking at as, kind of a 3 to 5 year plan. I think it makes sense. I do get asked about chemical applications in Lake George. There is a new kind of wonder drug, as they call it, or the silver bullet, that some people say it's called Percellacor. And so Percellacor is the next generation of Renovate and Sonar, the two traditional chemicals that are used to treat erased milfoil. For those of you that remember way back in the day, the LGA and the Bar Commission kind of led an effort to find out whether using chemicals in Lake George is going to be palatable. Had value, if it was going to be cost effective, what was going to happen. That got rejected by the Environmental Park Agency. And after that rejection, our chairman, actually, as our new chairman back in 2001 and 2, went down to the governor's office and said, listen, you took away our biggest tool to fight milfoil in Lake George. What are you going to do for us? And that's when we started getting in the Environmental Protection Fund. They gave a good chunk of money up front. That's going to whittle back a little bit. Thankfully, it's been supplemented by outside sources. So Percellacor is still in the back of our minds because there's some very good areas in Lake George. For a small fraction of the cost, we can eliminate up to 99% of those plants, because that seems to be its kill rate, about 99% in good conditions. And then after the fact, like what Loon Lake is doing in the town of Chester, they did a treatment of Renovate. They went back, they found about a 1% survival rate, and then they send in hand crews after that. So if you're not spending all this money hand harvesting, because you can knock it back with chemical treatment, maybe that makes sense. So we talked to the Environmental Park Agency. Lee Walrath is a very open-minded guy up there. He says, the amount of money that you guys are spending in Lake George is just mental. It's a lot of work. There's ways to do it for cheaper, but we understand that your drinking water supply, and this is kind of the gold standard lake for New York State. And if you're successful at what you're doing right now, and you still have the public financial support for it, continue what you're doing, and if at the end of this effort you're still struggling with the same amount of money, you should really have a larger public conversation about going in a different direction that most of the lakes in the country actually do. Most of the lakes in the country use chemical treatment and followed up by hand harvesting. Since we're a drinking water supply and we are the clean American lakes, we've kind of put that conversation on for the last 20 years. So something to think about in the future. So that is a quick snapshot of where we are for milfoil. From my perspective, it is the funnest part of this job when Joe and I go out in the lake and we swim a couple miles a day, get out of the office, and it's nice to see from a real-time basis that we are making progress, and hopefully within the next several years, this conversation about constantly pushing something that's milfoil that hopefully we can pass. So that's what I have, and if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Does our contractor do work for other?
Where's that site?
Yep, they're out of Manchester, Vermont. They do several of the reservoirs in Massachusetts, and they have some lakes in Vermont. They're only New York Lake that I'm aware of. And it's good work. It's not easy work. So we're working with them on a couple different methods. Right now, they're running one hose and one guy in the water and two topside. So we've discussed the idea of running two topside and two hoses in the water, because part of the program is a little bit inefficient, where we used to have two guys in the water, and now we have one there. You let that one guy in the water due to the lack of turbidity, and his efficiency in pulling this up is as effective as the previous contractor. So we're meeting with them at Walt's office on December 4th, and just kind of have this broad conversation about how to move forward. Our current contract has expired, but we have the ability to renew that contract for another 2-year term, and we're going to be talking about that. That's it. Anybody else?
You had 420 in 2019.
Yes.
What will you have in 2020?
The same amount, assuming that Walt and Chris are able to come up with the money that they have so far. The grant is fairly guaranteed. Our $100,000 in the EPF has remained that level for at least 8 or 9 years. So it's really how well the nonprofits are able to help out.
So you feel confident that you can raise at least the 420 for the next 3 years, approaching the 500, and perhaps you'll be able to raise the difference between 420 and 500.
Right. So this was the first year that we utilized the grant funding. So this was kind of year one. We have 2 additional years to have this level, but there's also some additional funding, and one of the old Department of State grants, you follow all the old Decker grants. Some of those dollars are available for milk oil control, so that would give us that additional year. That's already been parsed out of one of those grants. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, David. Yes, more of his dates. Where is it? Glen Burnie. Is that Glen Burnie? Looks like Glen Burnie. It's been a good meeting.
We're glad the Chronicle sent their winter reporter to our meeting today. The Chronicle. I'm sorry.
What did you call it?
Well, Chronicle. You know, I still pay a quarter a week in season for your paper. My phone, I should turn my phone off. It's buzzing with birthday congratulations to my wife and her extended family, which most of them are mine. Anyways, let's move on to project review actions report. That's done.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's accepted. And who's our project review person, Joe?
That's me. Yep.
Would you introduce the first project for us?
I'd be happy to. So the first application is for a tour boat operation. Applicant is Scott McFarland, Adirondack Boat Tours and Water Sports. He's applied to operate out of Shore Meadows, which is an existing Class A marina, authorized for this type of operation. He applied to have 2 boats offering sightseeing tours and tubing and water skiing. And Mr. McFarland's here to talk about his project and answer any questions. Please approach the mic. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for having me. Appreciate it. And thanks for what you do. It's very enlightening to see the amount of work that you guys put in to save our lake. Thanks. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one on the number of activities, number of tours per day. You're now at 8 total, if I understand it, for the boat drive, and you want to go to 10. Is that right?
So typically speaking, it's going to be 2 boats operating a minimum of 2-hour tours. So I would say the overall total will be around 6. It's going to be the Thursday nights when we add in the fireworks cruises. That'll bring possibly up to 10 tours. But if somebody takes a 6-hour tour, that's going to drop the number down to 3 or 4 tours a day. At max will be the 10 hours or the 10 trips per day, but that's typically going to be on just the Thursday nights in July and August. I really anticipate around 6 to be the magic number.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody here else to comment on this project? You're welcome to sit down while we...
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Any comments from anyone?
No.
Simple, straightforward?
Yep.
Anybody?
If we visited the site, it looks like a good operation. We've been there before, and I don't see anything negative to say about it. Or looks like an approval to me.
We need
And the only reason I asked the question was because this is in the business part of the lake.
Right?
So check it out and work with the commission.
Which one of these things? Which one did you get that?
You went to the meeting right there.
Dean, I expressed the same concern when we were at the site last Friday. I just, I figured, well, if 8 has been working, why not just keep it at 8? But your answer, you usually do 6, so that would be 3 with each boat a day, and then it's usually Thursday night that you put the extra on. And then I think I read where you try to go different routes each time, so you don't just keep going along the same shoreline and whatever.
That's correct. Yeah, that way, just to alleviate any public concerns of having the same route every day, for your benefit, so you're not getting those phone calls, but also for the benefit of the shoreline, to change things up a bit.
Would keeping it at 8 cause a financial hardship?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I really envision it being around 6. I just put in that max just in case there was that opportunity to, for economic reasons, on those Thursday nights. But yeah, you can certainly, if that puts you at ease, we can modify that to 8.
Anybody else? Joe, do you have...
Does the commission feel that 8 is the appropriate number for now?
I do.
You that visited the site would be first.
Okay. Resolution 2019-51. Application number is 5222-47-19. Applicants are Adventure Boat Tours and Water Sports. Whereas the applicant has applied for a permit for a tour boat operation, and the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. And the Commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to State Environmental Quality Review Act 6 NYCRR 617.5, and as lead agency for the purpose of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment. And whereas the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3, public notice has been published and distributed as required. And whereas the applicant has demonstrated that the activity complies with the tour boat requirements of 646-1.4D and number 2, the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, and welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it's proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed, except that the maximum number of tours per day will be only 8. So moved.
Should we vote on that as an amendment first?
No.
Because I don't see any indication that staff made that 10 wouldn't be
Okay.
fine. I mean, I think,
Okay.
I don't want to,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
I didn't-
I think we should do it that way.
It's a good idea. We could do that. We'll propose as proposed without any changes to the applicant. So moved.
So, motion made. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? So that motion is carried.
I don't understand what we're doing. I thought Mark said we were going to vote on whether or not we wanted to change
Change
the
it to 8.
modification here, and I didn't see that as a vote.
No, we voted to pass the tour boat as proposed, the applicant. And if you want to change the tour boat volume for that particular, for a given day, from 10 to 8, we would have to vote an amendment, is what Dave, Mark is
Vote an
proposing.
amendment to do that.
So if
we
you want, somebody wants
pass
to change
it
it from
first.
10
So
to
we
8.
pass it first, and then we change to put an amendment on it?
Yes, that's
So
what
it's-
Mark is proposing.
I didn't understand the
Right.
protocol.
So
I
if
don't
you're
quite
better-
understand why we're doing it either, because historically, if we make changes to what we've got already in the record, that just gets changed as a change before we vote on anything. And I don't ever remember us going back and having to amend something we already voted on.
Right, these are just draft resolutions for your consideration, so you can, as long as upon acknowledgement to the commissioners that you're changing some of what the draft is in there, correct me where I'm wrong, so Mr. Stanek can say, here's the resolution, my proposal is to reduce that number from 10 to 8.
Right.
The board can have a discussion on that, and then you guys can move forward with however you see fit.
Yeah, we
So
didn't
right
have
now, we passed it as 10.
Well, we didn't have a discussion on whether 10 or 8 was a consensus of
Right.
the commission, so that's what I'm asking for, before you change it.
Unfortunately, I allowed discussion before the second was made, which is an improper act. So, we now stand officially with however many ayes and 1 nay.
Two
Two
nays.
nays, excuse me, okay. So, that resolution as read carries. Now, does anybody want to propose an amendment to the resolution that we just passed?
Yeah, I'll propose an amendment to say that the maximum number of trips per day will be 8 instead of 10.
Would be changed from 10 to 8.
Yeah, I said the maximum number will be 8 instead of 10.
All right, is there a second to that proposal?
I second that.
Second. Is there discussion to that proposal?
Yes. I have a difficult time with it because we can't really monitor and measure that from the Marine Patrol. So I'm having, whether it's 10 or 8, it's still going to be difficult to...
It's an unenforceable regulation.
That's right. That's what I was going to.
Any other comments?
Well, if that's the way you feel, then he could do 12 or 13, no matter whatever. I promise you I won't.
I think
Just saying.
That's not where we're going. We're looking
Okay.
for discussion on the amendment, the proposed amendment, changed from 10 to 8. Mr. Mason.
I don't think it's necessary. So I'll be voting against the
All
amendment.
right, motion made, second, discussed, we'll have a roll call vote. Start it.
So, and what is it?
No. And the motion is whether we do the amendment to 10 to 8. You're no.
I'm a no.
No.
Dave's no.
No.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
No.
No. No.
Yes, some things never change.
And the chair votes no. So amendment fails.
Okay.
Okay.
The
Correct.
official limit is 10, and you're on your honor system.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks. Second project is a variance request for wharf modification by Mr. Epstein in the town of Bolton.
Correct. So this is an existing non-compliant dock with a sun deck located inside the 20-foot setback. The applicant currently has a boathouse height relative approximately 12 feet in height. Is requested to increase the height of that sun deck to the regulatory limit of 16 feet to accommodate a boat lift underneath. Because that sun deck is located inside the 20-foot setback, this represents something that requires a variance. It exacerbates, in theory, the noncompliance in the vertical dimension. Mr. Epstein's here to discuss the application.
Thank you for your time.
You're on.
So, bought the house this spring, excited to be on the lake, and thank you for cleaning up the Northwest Bay. Appreciate that. The first person I had look at the dock said the boathouse has to come down. It's not safe, so either way, it's got to be rebuilt. The crib dock is too close to my neighbors, according to that, and has a variance. I think the dock was built 25-plus years ago. So we are going to rebuild the boathouse. And since I'm rebuilding it, I'm actually making it smaller, but I'm making it higher to just make sure I can accommodate the boat. I'm on the southern end of the Northwest Bay, so it gets rough at times, and I want to be able to lift the boat out. And the way it is right now, I actually scrape the top of it. So going to the legal limit should give me the ability of also having a lift when I rebuild it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here to speak about this project? And how about our visiting committee? Did
We visited the site, and I don't see any problems granting this at all. He's just barely, isn't he just barely into the setback?
20 foot.
But the docks look good, and to force him to remove the crib docks and relocate them seems onerous, and I don't see any issues that push us to do that, as far as I'm concerned. I'd be in favor of this.
Anyone else that was?
I was there.
The height of the dock is not impacting any of the adjacent sites because all the adjacent sites are up quite a bit. It's steep stairs going down to the dock.
And I was there, and it's going to be a good project. But why is that pipe there with the flag on it?
The iron pipe.
That iron pipe. What does that signify? Because
That's a great question. The surveyors came in and did their survey and said that's not the survey land.
It's not the boundary line, but it gives you makes you think it is.
I asked the same question. I don't know why it's there. I don't know if maybe someone incorrectly did a survey years ago, but I just bought it, so
But it's flagged too. Okay.
Yeah,
Like a survey pipe.
it's possible. I mean, I've had so many contractors there. It's possible someone. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's what I assumed it was the survey line, but it's not. It's over on
Because
the
you
line.
still have 9 more feet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Great view.
Yeah.
Great
Thank you. I
location.
was excited when I saw it. So.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. So, Mr. Epstein, one of the concerns at the staff level was that if you're increasing everything from the water level up and not doing dock work, we've had situations in the past where people have been given approval for that, and then all of a sudden they change the entire dock work and they keep it in the same non-compliant location. So from our perspective, just a simple acknowledgement from you that you're not changing your actual crib docks, that's going to remain in that location, because the commissioners are allowing you to leave it in the setback. However, if you were to say, I'm going to redo my entire structure, the commission will require you to bring it back into conformity outside of the setback. So I guess what I'm looking for you now to say is, we have no plans to reconstruct these cribs, to the maximum extent, rebuild the whole things, because if you are, then we would require that you move it back in.
Totally understand. So the whole project is they're going to take the boathouse down, they're going to redo the surface of the crib docks, that's it, and then build the new boathouse on top of it. And they'll be staying as is.
Could we just make that a condition? I agree with that if they do decide to remove the cribs and replace them, that they move it, that they have to come
bring
back.
it back into compliance. I think that's a fair point, especially since Mr.
Yeah,
has no...
that's fine. I have no intention of moving. It's too expensive.
I wouldn't if I were you, that's all I want.
Joe, could you read a resolution with that amendment as a adjustment as a tail end?
2019-52. Application number is 5220-42-19DM. Applicant is Brian Epstein. Whereas the applicant has applied for a permit for wharf modification to expand the height of a boathouse within 20 feet of the sideline setback. And whereas the Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, the Commission has made a determination pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-3.6 and the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NYCRR 617.5 that the project is a Type 2 action and does not require further review of potential environmental impacts pursuant to this act. Whereas the action is considered to be a minor project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3 and public notice has been published and distributed, and whereas the applicant has requested a variance from 6 NYCRR 646-1.1C, number 11, every dock or wharf constructed shall have a minimum setback of 20 feet from the adjacent property line. Whereas the applicant has demonstrated that strict conformance within the regulations will cause unnecessary hardship due to unique, peculiar circumstances which impose substantial financial and technical and safety burdens. And whereas the Commission finds that there is no reasonable possibility that the applicant's property, or if no property is involved, the continuation of the applicant's business, enterprise, use, or activity will bring a reasonable return following conformance with the regulations. The Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area which is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake Shore Park Commission hereby approves the request for variance, approves the above application with the following modifications: that any crib work would require bringing the whole dock into compliance with the regulations. So moved.
So could I just, any crib work, I assume, because I'm resurfacing it, that's okay, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
It's a physical.
Taking.
Got it.
Acceptable, right?
Yes.
It's been made, second. Any additional? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No abstentions? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. As we move on, later into the day here, Law Enforcement Committee report. We had a Law Enforcement Committee meeting this morning commencing at 9 a.m. and our lieutenant advised us of our equipment upgrades and the status. Let everybody know that we still do have one boat in the water and will have until it's ice time in the event that we are needed for on an emergency basis. And we still have officers available. We discussed various subjects and new activities that are on the boat. We went into executive session and discussed a couple of important enforcement actions. And we adjourned from executive session, and I have a resolution 2019-53, whereas the Law Enforcement Committee met November 26, 2019 to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and the Commission's law enforcement program, and whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive session, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on the results of that committee meeting at this full Commission meeting, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's law enforcement report, now therefore be it resolved that the Commission accepts the report of the Law Enforcement Committee, and I'll make that as a motion.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No abstentions? Carried. And we now come to public comments, which we're lacking thereof, the public. Must be a cold day on Lake George. A non-public comment.
Is there any feeling from this commission about putting pressure-treated lumber in the lake?
About what?
Pressure-treated lumber, you know it, it's green. If you build a dock on pressure-treated lumber, which I will say we don't in our bay, is that I mean, we've always felt that pressure-treated lumber in Lake George, which is a water drinking supply, certainly in our bay it is. I mean, I think 90% of the people up there get their water straight out of the lake. So why would we want to put pressure-treated lumber in a dock? The preservative into the lake over time.
Are we talking in the lake or on top of the dock?
Probably wouldn't make much difference.
Anyway, it's close enough so
I would lean towards Roger and Joe.
And I think Molly's done some research on this too.
Yeah, many years ago we looked into this because there's a number of different types of pressure-treated lumber. So DEC has done the research and has figured out that certain chemicals are prohibited. So we looked at their regulations, and the town of Queensbury also has some prohibited chemicals. There's nothing in our regulations that prohibits the use of pressure-treated wood, and we've always allowed it with the exceptions of a few certain chemicals that are, not generally used in pressure-treated wood today. I think just one of them, right?
Arsenic, yes.
Chromated copper arsenate.
But yeah, I
We have that as a
think
condition.
every dock permit has those conditions in it.
Sorry, what did you say? You added that as a condition?
Oh, it's been in the permits for years. We've taken a couple cases. It's not particularly easy when there's a truckload of wood there, but we've done it.
So we do occasionally find it.
Okay.
We do.
I guess only one that I remember.
It didn't go so well, but yeah.
Roger, would you say the pressure-treated lumber that's sold today is a lot more environmental friendly than, let's say, 30 years ago? That's basically...
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
that was the big push to get out of it, that arsenic-based treatment.
Yeah, they were arsenic for a long time.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But there's still stuff on the lake that was built, with the old...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the higher end and a lot of the docks today, they're still using native white pine cribs under the water because if it stays submerged, it's not a problem.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine underwater is fine.
It's that transition between air and water is where the rot begins. So
All the salvage
the upper
companies that
levels of the crib will be
Yeah,
treated
it's-
as will the deck. There's high-end Brazilian hardwoods and things like that are rot resistant, but it's very
So is it-
Exactly.
Yeah, but you don't want to build
Things today.
a dock out of cola.
It will specify in there that the pressure-treated lumber be copper-treated.
It'll prohibit ACC, which is arsenic from something. Yes.
So is it your learned advice to the commission that what we're doing now is hopefully, is appropriate? That no additional...
Yeah, I wasn't directly involved in the review, the condition, but I go out and look at those things, and yeah, I think we're doing what we can.
All right. Well, thank you.
Cool.
Anybody else have anything? Hearing none, I would accept a motion.
Move to adjourn.
And I'll second it.
Made, second, carried, gone.
Up we go.